Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Perspective. I'm very, very pleased to be talking with Merrisha Singh Naicker. She calls herself a wounded healer, but she is also a trained relationship and family therapist. And on the show today, we're going to be talking about the impact of absent fathers on boy children. It's a very, very important issue in our communities. It's a very important discussion to be having because it's not only the impact on that one boy child. We're going to be looking at the ripple effect of this very damaged child with not having had a father in his life to guide him, and how his journey through life impacts negatively on his immediate circle, and I guess even beyond. So we're going to try and unpack all of that and much, much more on the show right here on Perspective. Merrisha Singh Naicker, very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie. Shukran. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for making the time to be here. I truly appreciate it. And when I look at your CV, I'm so very impressed. Alhamdulillah, I see you a wounded healer, and of course you're a trained relationship and family therapist. So I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell me, what is a wounded healer? What type of work do you do to heal wounds? And I know we're talking metaphorically, we're talking about psychological wounds, and they are the more difficult to heal, are they not?
Yes, absolutely. So wounded healer is a term that comes from Henry Nouwen, and he explains it as someone who has their own issues, pain, hurt, which we all have, and that when you can take that and use it for the service of others, which means that you have to do a lot of healing work through it.
For yourself.
For yourself. And for myself, I have kind of identified with that because I myself am a survivor. So firstly, I'm a survivor of childhood abuse. And that has impacted me in many different ways, negatively and positively now. So I've realized that how do I take the hurt and pain that I faced, and then growing up, learning how do I deal with it and how do I bring, what I want to bring into my relationships so I don't repeat some of the harm that was done to me. And that has then allowed me to say that I have a wound, I've been wounded, but then how do I heal myself and then help others journey in their healing as well.
Wow. You also obviously a marriage and therapy, a family therapist, and then you are an advanced circle keeper. What on earth is that? It's the first time I hear about it.
So in the South African context, you may know of maybe lokotlas, where people would sit in a circle traditionally, and you would have people share going around. I was trained in this in the Native American way, which is Indigenous First Nation, which is common even in different cultures, where you would have someone who really facilitates a conversation, a deep dialogue, allowing people to bring their experiences, who they are, bring their pain, bring their voices. It allows people to, we use usually a talking symbol, and we usually go around and pass that talking symbol on, which means when that person is holding it, you give them your full attention, you listen deeply and actively. So it's really creating a safe space, a courageous one, and an accountable space. That's what circle keeping does. And it makes sure that everybody's voices are heard. It makes sure that there are grounding values. So each person in the circle will put a grounding value for what they want the time and the space to be about, and then all of them would have to agree to that value, whether it's respect or love or care or keeping to time or talking about what are some resources for healing. So that's a little bit more about what circle keeping is.
And the people that attend a circle, would it be the same people week in and week out? how often, I presume it's a therapy session in itself.
Yes.
So how often do they meet, and, you know, how does that process work, that they heal in that process? It would have to be with a trained psychologist or a trained therapist like yourself.
So they're firstly different types of circles. So you could have, for example, a peace circle. You could have a venting circle, you know. You could have a circle that is a questioning circle. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a psychologist, but a person who is trained in facilitation, because it would mean that you would not be putting your views and what you want to say, but allowing for space so that people could really share deeply and for them to be heard well. So in circle keeping, it's about...
There would be no crosstalk as I'm doing right now in circle keeping.
Yes, because again of a talking symbol. So it will be something symbolic that you would institute as part of the circle. Look, you can at times lay it down and say, we're just going to be talking openly, if that's needed, the crosstalk. But it allows people to hold on to what they are feeling, to process it, and then kind of not just react, but respond in a way where I've listened to what people have said. So when the talking symbol comes to you, you've already had to listen deeply to several members of the circle. So it allows for a more integrated process of your own thoughts, where you are coming from, and how do you bring that to everybody in the circle.
And isn't that one of the problems we sit with these days, is not active listening? So I'm sitting and engaging with you here and now, but I'm already formulating other questions in my mind. So I'm not actively listening to you. And that is a downfall for a lot of us. And that does, in fact, impact on relationships, because I'm not hearing you.
Yes, absolutely. So we are so used to listening to respond. Okay, because that is sometimes the conversation we want to respond. So we just listen to respond. And what circle keeping does is that it asks you to listen to understand firstly. So listening to understand is different to listening to respond. And we don't do enough of that, even in our relationships at home with our families, you know, especially I as a mother as well. I just want to listen to respond to my child, or even to my partner, to say, this is what I want to say, or this is what you must do. But listening to respond asks us to go a little bit deeper, to just pause and say, what is this person really trying to say? And am I hearing them?
You kind of then reflect back on what they've said, and I'm wanting to understand what is and how the healing then happens. You did indicate that you get all different types of circles, and I like what you said about you can even create your own sibling circle or family circle, and you can really vent in those circles. By so doing, you'd get rid of all the angst and all of the stuff that you vented for so long. But in having said that, you need a circle keeper, I should imagine, because it could probably get a bit out of control.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I mean, and again, it depends on the family. We all have dynamic families, or even spaces, you know, and the topic at hand, you know, some of it. What would be important is the grounding values that you set. So at the beginning, there would be a time of why we are here, what do we want to get from this, and where do we go to. So you would set that together, and you would also set how long you're going to take. So it's not going to go on for 2-3 hours. Maybe we're going to do this in 30 minutes. We're going to do this, we have enough time. So those values and agreements are set together in the circle, so that people know this is our plan, and this is how we're going to get there, and this is what we're going to do.
Are these circles popular? I do know that, you know, in support group settings, they use the circle methodology. But is it kind of gaining momentum? And like you said, lahotlas and tribal settings and possibly family get-togethers, when you're having to you know, probably vent on a problem within the family, but talking widely, because I also see that you are the CEO of Indie Afrique, suggesting that you do a lot of work in corporate. So would you introduce these type of concepts there as well?
Yes, definitely. It can be used for a whole range of situations and circumstances. It's not a traditional way. Let me say that, you know, or typical way, because usually in dialogue, it's okay, you say and I say, and then where do we move? This is allowing for a little bit deeper interaction to hold on to our own thoughts and understandings and what we want to bring, but then also consider, especially when there's conflict or when there's difference of understanding. And because it keeps going around, it's almost like this, it has to go deeper. It goes deeper because you're listening, and then you're listening, and then you come to a place of, let me say, a deeper understanding, empathy, trust, then sometimes is quite superficial. So even in a corporate setting, we know that the business must go on, but relationships are important for the work to be done. And sometimes people find that, you know, they need a little bit of a containment. So we contain that space for them, and we co-create it together to say, look, these are the issues that we need to discuss, but how do we find a safe space again? Because sometimes spaces can be quite unsafe. So what is said there stays there. How can it be courageous so that we're a little bit brave to say, this is what I'm you know, really dealing with, or finding it hard to find consensus, and then accountable.
And let's hold it there. We are talking with Merrisha Naicker Singh. She is a circle keeper. She's a family therapist. She's also trained relationship and family therapist. We're going to now, in the next segment, we're going to talk about the boy child and the absent father syndrome, and how that impacts on all of those relationships that that particular child will be interacting with going forward. Merrisha Singh Naicker is my guest, and we touched on one or two of the areas of her work, which truly is interacting with people and helping people heal from all of their traumas and their broken relationships. I've only touched on 2 or 3. She is involved in so much more. Time permitting, we will try and unpack that as well. But I want to focus on the boy child and the absent father figure. We want to see how damaging it is on the boy child and his future relationships. So that is, in fact, the question. And when we talk about the absent father syndrome, you could, in fact, be in a family, the father is there. It's not as if he's abandoned them or anything. He could still be a part of this unit, but still be absent emotionally.
Yes.
So how damaging is this absent father on this child's upbringing?
So, Julie, what you mention is a very common reality for many families and people in South Africa. Our research at Heartlines has showed that at least 60 to 70% of children grow up without the active, positive, present father in their home, which means that this puts them at a risk for a range of issues, from mental health issues, being either victims or perpetrators of gender-based violence. It also places them at a higher risk for substance abuse, for them to not meet their milestones and achievement goals in schooling. Teenage pregnancy as well. So it's a range of issues that we see when the father is absent, either physically or, like you're saying, emotionally. It puts children at a higher risk for those different harmful issues that we are seeing.
And that circle is quite large, is it not? Because it's perhaps this one boy child that has been damaged by an absent father figure. he goes on and impacts on 16 or more other people. Let's look at the role of a mother in a situation like this. Are we saying then that she's not strong enough or grounded enough to have fulfilled that empty space that dad has left behind?
No, absolutely not. So we want to make sure that we really validate and affirm the role that women have played in taking care of children. And largely for most of our lives and generations upon generations, women have been doing the caregiving when it comes to the role of taking care of children. However, we are seeing that it has put a lot of stress on women to bear this alone, to be able to only do this huge role of, and it's such a rewarding role of taking care of children, but still having to run a household. Many women are also working outside the home who have full-time jobs, but they still have to come home and do this. And so what we are saying is that in order for the well-being of not just the child, but for the father themselves and for the mother, it's more helpful when both parents are able to share the care, when both parents are able to be emotionally available, and not just the mum or the granny, which is largely what has happened. It also has meant as women that we have had less time for our own care, which has also then placed us at higher risk for mental health issues, for physical issues. And so we're seeing the effects of this child having a range of these, but also the women themselves, and then with the dads as well.
So it's quite a vicious circle that has been created here. There's that saying which you're very familiar with as well. It takes a village to raise a child. Where have we gone wrong? That if the father is not around, the village too seems to have disappeared.
So, you know, historically in South Africa, unfortunately, we come from a nation with multi-generational trauma. We know that the effects of apartheid, for example, migrant labor, dads had to leave their homes, leave their families, and then go off and find work. And which meant that, again, they couldn't be present physically. And then also the effects of trauma, and again, the way men are raised, that you contain your emotion, you don't ever show it. You need to be the strong one, you need to be the provider, you need to be the protector. And if you think if a man just keeps all of these emotions in, whether they're positive or negative, eventually they would explode. And so men have had, as much as women had to be in a certain way, men had to be in a certain way, which in some ways have harmed us. And so fathers have not been able to see the link of, if I can't provide financially, then I'm no good for anything else. And that has been the rhetoric that a father must provide. And we want to say that fathers can do so much more than just providing money. You know, yes, for any child, obviously money is needed, but there's so much more that a child needs, and a father can also do that. We see now that it's not only women who need to be who can have that attachment to children, because we say, you know, moms have this instinct. We've seen in research that dads who provide, for example, kangaroo care, that skin-to-skin contact.
When baby's born.
Yes, when a baby's born. Normally mums are given, and they do that with the mum. And it builds attachment, it builds a bonding. But when dads do it, we see that even the baby's heart rate goes down. The baby becomes less stressed. And so there's a great bonding that can happen for dads as well. And it has great benefits for the child.
With this child that doesn't grow up with his natural father, I'm trying to understand if paternal, maternal, uncles or grandparents can fill that role. We know in South Africa our situation's very unique. We normally find the gogos looking after the children when the younger people leave the rural areas to go to the cities to go and find work, or because of broken families, it seems that the gogos are the main caregivers. How detrimental or how wholesome or good? I mean, we need to look at the positive and the negative sides of both that situation. Talk us through all of that, because we also know that those children raised by their gogos have a deep attachment to the gogo and to their extended families.
So absolutely, we have to say that gogos, single moms, have done phenomenally. We know many children who've grown up, you know, through their grandparents, their grandmoms, their gogos, their nannies, you know, that have been so formative for their own upbringing, their identity, their values. But we also know it costs a lot, not just in terms of money, but in terms of the emotional cost of what it means for a gogo to raise children alone. And so at Heartlines, we call this social fathering. Exactly what you said, is to ask men to step in and to step up and to play that either big brother role, the social father role, be a father figure to this child so that they can learn the things that they may not be getting from their single mom or their gogo or their bigger sister. I mean, there's certain topics or there's certain things that men can talk to young boys about how to control your emotions. A simple one like my son now needing to shave. I've never needed to shave my face, but his dad can tell him, you know.
And dad plays that
yes,
role.
and dad can tell him, or even if dad wasn't there, then how do I get another man to say, okay, you know, this is the way you shave down in downward strokes, or even if it's some
and
of
all that boy things, man to boy things.
Yes, your body changes. That's happening, which I, as a woman, you know, have no inkling at what that means.
Absolutely.
Which is what I'm seeing with my 3 sons now.
Okay.
And having men come around and say, these are the positive ways of handling some of this. Not that that I don't play a role. I absolutely do and should speak to them about a whole wide range of issues. But it's important to have men as well step in and step up and be helpful in those formative years as well, especially when they're forming their identity, when they're wanting to know more about when their hormones are changing and developing.
Absolutely. Let's hold that thought for the next segment. I'm talking to Merrisha Singh Naicker. Please do stay with us. We will be back in a minute or two. We're talking about the boy child and, of course, the absent father syndrome. Let's not forget that the girl child too can be affected by an absent father, and the pivotal roles that family members, extended family members, need to and should be taking in the healthy raising of these children. Back to you, and you keep referring to, and you will answer that question in a minute or two, but you also keep referring to Heartlines.
Yes.
What is that all about?
So Heartlines is a social change organization, and we are a values promotion center that help people live out their professed values. So if it's love or respect or community, we have programs and projects that come alongside, whether it's churches or faith-based organizations, schools, even corporates and communities, to do some of this work of what it means to build empathy, to build trust. And the big program that we are talking about now is the Fathers Matter. So the active, positive presence of men in the lives of children. We've done some good years of research that has shown us that this is important, and this is the one factor that really could change our nation and transform it into having more healthy and just families and communities.
So we now we sit with a serious problem in South Africa, and I have no doubt in my mind that it is possibly endemic around the world, because this is not unique to us. But I think what we carry with us is the legacy of apartheid and how that broke up families. I mean, you spoke about the migrant laborers. That was a huge impact on families and society at large. Let's talk about then going forward with these mentors. Would they and can they make a positive difference in the lives of boy children? And at the same time, let's not forget the girl child. I know one large corporate a couple of years ago promoted something about taking a girl child to work because it seemed as if the focus was all on the boy child. Where are we now with all of that, the boy child and the girl child, and how much more work and support has to be done to have very, I guess, well-heeled and grown-ups that truly are grounded?
So we are seeing that, like you said, you know, when we are focusing on one, then what about the other? And that has happened. Even the area of, for example, gender-based violence, we've seen that we had to work a lot with women. But now we're seeing that, hey, we have to include the men in this, because that's also where we will see the changes. And so when we are talking about the work, we are really looking at multiple ways, at many different strategies of how we can get to that point where we see more healed families and communities. And so with the work with Heartlines and even with the Faith Action Collective that I'm a part of, we want to talk about how do we support men in their roles, so having a positive outlook on masculinity, and inviting women as well to that. Because when we think about it, we all have been socialized in ways that sometimes unintentionally, and sometimes we haven't really interrogated why we do some of the things that we do. For example, saying that, you know, as a father, you have to provide money and you do the discipline. And the mother, she must cook the food and she must do the loving roles. So where does that come from? You know, it may have served us this one time. It may have benefited the family, but we're seeing it doesn't anymore. We're seeing that there's more harm in that. And that when we are able to have men be fathers, be active and positive and present, be emotionally present for their children, it benefits the whole family. And so even for women, sometimes we ourselves are gatekeepers. No, that's not a man's job. That's not a father's job. That's my job. Why do you want to take the role that I'm supposed to do? But I think we also see lots of women have entered the labor force, and sometimes they're even the breadwinners, but we are still doing the caregiving work. And sometimes at the detriment to our own mental health and well-being. And it also doesn't develop the men and the fathers, the skills that they could have, the knowledge that they could have. And so we are saying, let's have both men and women develop their skills and their knowledge in what it means to be an active, positive, present person, a parent if they are, and if you're not a parent, but for other children in our communities.
Merrisha, we talk about the absent father syndrome, and there's an area that needs to be addressed, and I'm hoping and praying that organizations like yourself are giving deep thought to it, including the justice system. What's the situation of divorced parents? And we know that in a lot of cases, those divorces might have been very acrimonious. So, you know, the mother will say, I'm not allowing you access to the child. And in that case, the child is losing out, whether he's a good person or not, but not allowing contact with the child, the boy child or the girl child. You're robbing that child of a very important part of his future, current and future development.
Absolutely, and I think this is a very common reality. You know, when you're saying, you know, the parting wasn't amicable. And also for many families, They may have not even been married, because we also have, quite high rates of unmarried people who are having children or have had children. They may have been together at one time and then realized, no, we need to part ways. And often women have the role of taking care of that child, and they never get to see, the child never gets to see their dad because of the relationship that still remains quite negative. And so we've tried to have conversations with, especially I think, people who have separated, and to say, can we center the well-being of the child? Because when you center the well-being of the child, then it kind of a domino effect. The well-being of the parents also are taken care of. And why we are saying that is, when we are looking at families, and we're not talking about, for example, if the person is abusive, because then we know that there needs to be some type of, okay, we can't allow access.
What about supervised visits?
Absolutely, so supervised visits. But remember, you also have to separate the relationship between the parents, because they may have been, in a really tough space, but can that father still be a good father to the child? You may not like him and he may not like you, but can you put that aside for the well-being of the child? So if it means, if you say, no, I don't want it at all, can there be supervised visits? So we've even used faith spaces to say, here's a safe space where the child can come, the father can come, they can play together, and they can be supervised by the faith leader of that community. So there's different ways to do this. We've even seen this in the cultural spaces. For example, we have in different cultures, in African culture, the aspect of intlawulo, which I think people may understand has damages. It's not the right word, but when a lady is pregnant before she's been married, there's a certain, whether it's cows or payment that needs to be paid. And if that father can't, he has no access to the child. And so we sat with the chiefs and said, is there another way? Here's a young father, he's unemployed. Unemployment is such a big issue. He doesn't have the money. He can't pay to see his child. What can be done? And they came up with creative ways. Can he cut the grass of the family? Can he do some maintenance and still get access? So it means that we have to really look at what are some of the things that we are doing that are not life-giving anymore to our children and their well-being and our own well-being. And maybe we need to reform that. We need to re-look at that and then look at what are the life-giving ways, the practices, whether it's cultural practices, whether it's legal practices that are not benefiting families any longer. How do we transform that? So that's what we are looking at.
All right, I'm going to come back and ask the question, are those visits, which may be once every 2 weeks, once a month, or maybe even weekly, are they of value? Is it going to make a difference in the child's life? All of that and much, much more. Merrisha Singh Naicker is my guest. We're talking about absent father syndrome in the life of a boy child. Welcome back, and we do hope and pray you are enjoying the conversation with my guest, Merrisha Singh Naicker, and of course we are talking about the absent father syndrome. So I asked you a question before the ad break regarding quantity of time spent with a child. With a separation or a divorce, the father has probably visitation right once a week or whatever. Is that enough time to truly bond with the child and make a difference?
Absolutely, Julie. I would say dads to use every moment that they have. So it's really about also the quality of time, because you could be spending, hours upon hours with your child and just being in their presence, but not really establishing the bond and the attachment. And so that's what you want from that time. So even if it's an hour session once a week, that you make the most and make beautiful memories, because children will remember how you made them felt in that moment. You affirm them, you play with them, you encourage them in that time. And so that will help them formulate that I have the strong attachment to someone who cares for me, who loves me. I may not see them all the time, but I know that they've got me. And so even in that short time, you want to make sure that you're using that time well, that you're making sure that strong attachments form, the bonding goes deep, and that you have beautiful memories that you're making.
What about issues around the hurt that the child is carrying? Parents might have separated at a very tender stage in his life, 3, 4, 5 years old, and he's never managed to get the answers for why. He feels abandoned. The abandonment causes hurt, confusion, and that then also obviously results in deep anger and hatred. That is a damaged child. That type of a child is going to grow up being delinquent. What do we do at that stage of the child's life to prevent him becoming a delinquent? That's the one scenario. And then the totally abandoned child. Is there any stage or age where you can go in and try and fix and put right so that you don't lose that child?
So I think often children also blame themselves or feel that they are to blame at why parents have split or divorced. Whether they were young or not, you know, they somehow get that impression that it's because of me. And so one of the most important things is to really settle that for a child, no matter what their age is that you are not the reason that we are no longer together as parents. And for them to understand that deeply, because they feel like, you know, I've caused this. And they sit with that deep guilt and hurt and pain and may not even be able to voice that. And so as parents to be able to say, we had a disagreement or misunderstanding, or we couldn't, you know, continue this relationship, but we definitely wanted to continue with you and be with you and care for you and love you. And so for them to separate that a little bit so that the child can understand some of that. That you may not be able to go into all of the details. There may be great pain or hurt or abuse or whatever it is, you know, but that both parents have that as a key message for the child. And so that is important in that space. And I think also for children, no matter what their age, so you're saying, you know, when does the intervention happen? And we found this out now that, you know, as a parent, you may have messed up throughout your child's life. But new research shows that children are still, people actually, up to the age of 25, are still formulating neural pathways for relationship patterns and how they behave, which means there's great hope, you know. So even if you've messed up when your child is 25, you still have ways and time to intervene and to make sure that you course correct and try and undo some of the harm. And how that is done is there's a ratio. It's kind of what people will say is a magical ratio, a therapist. Many therapists would say. So if there was one harmful incident, you need at least 7 positive ones to kind of cancel out the harm that would have caused.
Give me an example of how that would play out, a proper example.
Okay, so for example, if you said your child, you know, you are so stupid, you can't do this thing properly, you're so clumsy. And if they've heard that, they've now ingrained it in their being and who they are. It means that you would have to now affirm that you are worthy, you have value, you've done so well in that. And so to cancel out that aspect of you are stupid, you have no value, you have no worth. And sometimes, you know, we say things to children and we don't realize what it means. But affirming them and appreciating them, and not to be dishonest about it. If they've done something, you know, you really say not just their accomplishments, but really value who they are, that you've worked hard at this and well done, or I see how well you've been able to navigate this exams, you know, even though it was hard and you may have even failed. It doesn't mean you're stupid. So it means changing that narrative, that negative talk that comes. So that's one aspect of it. And I think in the relationship, it would also mean working hard of how you are treating your ex, because children watch that. And if it's still, you know, like a very disregarding way.
Very toxic.
Very toxic, they will pick that up. So even if you can get to a stage of being respectful, you will not agree on things, but can I be respectful? And can I teach my child that even when I don't agree with somebody, as close as this ex-person to me, can I at least be an example of what it means to respect them, to respect their dignity and their value and worth? And that would mean hard work as parents.
What about the totally abandoned child, where there's absolutely no contact with the father? Are we saying that, and I know we can't generalize, that some of these children are so determined to make a life for themselves that they work really hard, have wonderful and positive role models and make something of their lives? Sadly, that's 1 out of 10. Are those the children that are going to end up being delinquent, dropouts, not probably do well at school, not go to school at all, and then land up in, I guess, gangsterism or addiction? And eventually, when they do get into a relationship, it's going to be a very abusive relationship. They will then be abusing their partners, and that's where the GBV issues come about as well.
So, you know, for kids who have been abandoned, it's actually not a life sentence. It puts them at risk for them to go through these issues, whether it's delinquency or being at a high risk for substance abuse or perpetrators or victims of gender-based violence. It's not a life sentence. That's one thing we have to get clear, because there's many who have been abandoned, but yet, like you're saying, you know, have had to do so much to get through and overcome that. But what would be important is for that child to still have caring adults around them, other people who could play that role, whether it's a father figure role, a social father role. So making sure that a child that never is able to see their biological dad, and maybe even the dad has passed on, how do other people step in to fulfill that role? And the more number of safe, respectful, affirmative people you have in your life, the better your outlook for life is in building relationships, in how to do patterns of behavior, of how to speak with each other, of how to care. And so it's not hopeless. There's still hope, even for children, for boys who've never had a relationship with their biological dads. Other men can step in, faith leaders, youth leaders, coaches, teachers, and they can play a pivotal role in affirming this child, in affirming the boy child, in investing in them, in having the tough conversations, in showing up, whether it's for a soccer game or whether it's a match that they're playing. And so there's ways to work around some of the hurt and pain that abandoned children have gone through.
Thank you indeed for ending the interview on such a high note of hope. That's what we need here in South Africa, lots and lots of hope going forward. And undoubtedly, it's a global phenomena, so all around the world. Let's heal our children and let's have positive outcomes going forward and future healed generations. Merrisha Singh Naicker, thank you indeed for talking with us today and giving us hope, and you continue doing the amazing work that you're involved in. God bless.
Shukran. Thank you, Julie. It was wonderful being with you.
And that's where we leave it for today. Thank you indeed for your company. We do hope that you've found a bit of solace, hope, and a light at the end of the tunnel by listening to our guest, Merrisha. So till the next time, from me, Julie Ali, as always, thank you for watching, and Khud Hafiz.